I grew up in a very small town in the middle of nowhere in Ohio. And then I was fortunate enough to meet and marry my high school sweetheart. And we've got 2 kids, 2 grandchildren, 3 grandchildren now. And how did I get into political fiction from a pretty demanding role in a global law firm? I'm 75 years old. I'm about to retire. My wife thinks I have retired, and we're working on that. But when COVID started coming around a few years ago, and then we started having some of the issues that we're facing internationally, when we started seeing some of the things that were happening domestically, and we saw things sliding apart more than they were fitting together, I became concerned that the country and the world were doing and heading into things that were not in our interests overall. The test here, when we're looking at things like political issues, ought to be what's right, what's best, what's the most helpful thing we can do in terms of making the world better for our children and our grandchildren. But in terms of gut issues having to do with our country and its relationship with the rest of the world, it doesn't get any more important than this. It is not your mom's, your father's, or even your grandmother's election. This is a serious election about serious issues in terms of direction of the country and making things happen or not happen, as the case may be, that are necessary to calm things down and make things more productive. I would like to see the world change the way it thinks. We need to start here in the United States. If the United States does not provide leadership in these types of areas, nobody else is going to step up and do it. I need, as an individual citizen, to think hard about what we need to do as a country and who in Congress and then ultimately in the administration will do the most to forward ahead these issues that need to be dealt with, these priorities that ought to be calling us toward the future, not history. The more I thought, I would really like to be part of the solution as part of the problem. Admittedly, a little part of the solution. Do the right things, think ahead, study hard, be serious about it, and take the right steps now so that we can forge together a world, a country that makes sense for all of us. Is the book fiction or nonfiction? It's definitely fiction. It's based on concepts that I think apply in the real world. I'm not a PhD historian. I'm not an economics professor. There's almost everything I'm not. What I am is somebody who's seen, by virtue of a lot of things that have happened to me that have been lucky, I have seen in this country and around the world opportunities for people to collaborate more effectively. The question is, are you in a position where you're able to think about things in a cogent way and help put things together in a positive way? What I'm worried about is having people who are wanting to be solutions as opposed to be part of the problem. How does my work in the legal industry illustrate the themes in the book? One of the things that have been of the most value to me over the years has been the opportunity to interact with what I would characterize as really outstanding people. And people who can help you not only learn how to help clients, but to help clients go in the right direction. What kind of law did I study? Well, in law school, you study all kinds of things. You take a curriculum that's as broad as it is wide, and so you take a little bit of everything. And when I came out of law school, I thought I wanted to be a litigator. And I did that for the better part of 8 years. And so it's not so much what you learn in law school. What you learn in law school is how to pick up the screwdrivers and the wrenches of the practice of law. What you don't learn how in law school is how to use the wrenches and the screwdrivers and the vice grips in different ways, in different situations, to be most constructive. And what you want to be is constructive, thoughtful, forward-looking, and keeping in mind that you want a client to be happy about a transaction, in my case, over the long haul, rather than having a 15-minute party and then thinking, oh my God, what did I just do? That's not what we're in the business of doing. What would be an element that inspired portions of my book? That's a good question. Well, every day of the week, we're helping somebody somewhere finance something. Sometimes it's pretty ordinary, sometimes it's extraordinary. And what you want to be able to do is both varieties. and do them in positive, helpful ways. My practice life was sliding down in terms of volume. My dad used to say, that's the way the mop flops. I would say no, there wasn't a collision, but there was a collision in terms of how I thought about myself and what I was supposed to be doing and what I wanted to do in terms of reacting to the nation, states. And for example, I talk in the book, theoretically, hypothetically, in fiction, about some of the things that might be done in some of the lesser developed parts of the world in terms of creative finance. I would like to say that politics of the world and the politics of the United States really need to be focused on what some people would refer to as the little guy. Fact is, there is no little guy in our world. Everybody is important in their own way. As we don't all have to be the richest people in the world. I'd like us to be the fairest and the ablest and the leaders in terms of making things happen that are positive. You know, the writing process and how do you get from the here to there in terms of completing a manuscript. I can tell you what I did. And that is I thought about it in terms of what did I want to do, why, and what needed to be the components of it. And when I think about it, it just came to me, that's not unlike what I think the components of deciding how to vote are. But I think when you're deciding how to vote, the first question is, are you going to vote or not? Are you going to write the book or not? If you're going to write the book, then you better think about it. If you're going to vote, you better think about it. You better talk about it with somebody else. You better think about it again. You better make sure that you're in sync with people you're going to have to explain it to. But do not be the coward of not voting. I am probably the second or third worst typist in the world. What I do is I just think about it and it develops over time. And by the time you're done with this chapter, it doesn't look very much like what you started with because you have to understand where the chapter flows, how it fits into what has come before and what's going to be coming afterward. And so you have to think. Now, some people do a better job of that with outlines. You know, there are great journalists out there. Bob Woodward on up and down from there. If they see my name, Jim Maiwurm, they're probably not going to react the same way as when they see Bob Woodward on the bookstore table. So when they say Jim Maiwurm, you want them to think, well, this guy has some interesting thoughts. He may be nuts, but it's still interesting, and I want to understand what he has to say or think. And so, but part of it is getting past the reputation issue. But more importantly is, I think you have to understand where you want the book to fit in the wide range of types of books. My book has a mission. I want people to vote more carefully. I want them to think about it not once, but twice or three times. I want them to think about how their friends are voting. I want them to steer people in the right direction. I want them to think about it and not be trying to take advantage of some austere event that's happened in the past that really isn't relevant anymore. So think. Remember, this isn't about you. It's not about me. It's not about anybody really who's beyond fifth grade right now. What we're worried about is our kids and our grandkids and the children and grandchildren of people in Great Britain, in Iran, in India, in Hungary, in China, in South Africa, and every other place you can think of that has trouble, which is almost every place. So let's be citizens of the world with a thought process that tends to make us think about that, but as well, things that affect us here internally. Let it be. Thank you. I'm Jim Maiwurm. I'm the author of a book, sort of a cross between fiction, history, political science, good feelings and bad feelings. The book is called Inheritance of Crises and Dysfunction. Now that's a name with an edge to it, but it's intended to have an edge because I want the edge to be that you will sit down with the book and read it. I want everybody to have in their mind that things are capable of being, to be blunt about it, screwed up. And they are, and they will be unless we fix them. And the book is not a how-to book about how to unscrew up the world. But it is a how-to book in terms of things that you can think about and do as individuals. And what we want to do is think, talk, and act. Now,